on. I'm on with one of my favorite people in the world, my business bestie, Meredith Keenan. And she's got such wisdom about how business owners who are neurodivergent, on the spectrum, differently wired, how to best optimize their skills, their uniqueness, their quirkiness, and to build a successful business. And she's got a summit running, and I am one of the speakers. So I wanted to share her with you, and we'll talk a little bit about manifesting on the spectrum because she's a whiz at that, and that's something I love too. All right, so talk to us. You've been doing the summit for a week. What's been going on? What are kind of like some breakthroughs people are seeing, witnessing?
It's interesting because there's a lot of different, as a differently wired person, right? We all have the different things that connect with our unique ways that our brains work. And so often there are, um, just different insights. And we had, it was so funny because a lot of us are neuro quirky and spicy people, right? We don't always talk in linear lines, and we talk in circles. And so we kicked off the week with Dr. Ned Hallowell on Monday, and he is one of the foremost experts on ADHD, and I love and adore him. And it was so funny because it was about increasing confidence, and the conversation went and started talking about love and talking about how, and I think this works when it comes for manifesting as well, right? Ariana's talk is about manifesting for the spectrum, and hers was brilliant, right? If you're overstimulated and you don't have a lot of energy, your manifesting skills are diminished because your energy and your capacity is diminished. And I think Dr. Hallowell was talking about invisible forces. And I think that's very often and very similar to the stuff that Ariana talks about, those invisible forces that really help us, achieve our goals and have things aligned. My morning was a little wackadoo this morning. And Ariana, are you still here? Because I see just me.
I am. I was like making you big because you're talking. I'm hiding
I'd love
again.
to see you. I'd rather see.
Oh, okay. All right.
Right. So one of the things that we talked about for our neuro quirky people is, so my executive function, I'm a high stimulation seeker. And what that means is, I have fidgets, I do a lot of stuff, but what it means as a business owner, and I swear this was the biggest insight that hit me this morning as well, is that I want the nodding that she just did right on my screen.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I want the interactions, and it's very hard for me to
Yeah.
record in a vacuum. And
Right.
so I was supposed to have something right in all the realm of like when manifesting doesn't work or when your technology isn't matched up, maybe because you're not aligned well, like for whatever it is. Right. This morning I was supposed to have something scheduled live, but somehow there was a disconnect in communication. Hello, neurodivergence. Where the team didn't get it, and maybe the audience didn't get it, and so there wasn't a reminder, and I was supposed to do something, and I just didn't have it in me to do the talk to nobody and record it anyway. I find that really hard.
Yeah.
Right. And I think one of the things I need to do for most stuff, and I've talked about this for the next kind of iteration of the podcast. I think the next iteration of the podcast is conversations like this with Ariana, where we just talk about it. So I'd love
really
to hear
like.
from.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I really like how tuned in you are, that you had some things scheduled and it wasn't flowing. And instead of kind of getting, this is such a British expression, getting your knickers in a twist, okay, pause, take a nap. And then all of a sudden Ariana calls and say, hey, let's do a Facebook Live. And you jump on. And I think as someone on the spectrum and you as neurodivergent, I think that's one of our super skills is we can adapt, we can adjust, and we can, and I don't know if, and I do not mean to be in criticism of people who are not, but I'm wondering if, would you say we've got that adaptability and we can flow
Well,
a little bit?
I think some people do, right? I
Yeah.
mean, it's definitely a superpower, especially with ADHD. We're often known for our spontaneity. That's one thing.
Mm.
But I do think for a lot of neurodivergence, and Hallowell said this as well, we have a lot of tenacity and grit. And I think that's part of what you're
Mm.
talking about the adaptability, because we've been in a world that isn't meant for us and doesn't expect us to look the way we look or sound the way we sound or think the way we think, right? And I think that's a big part of it. And so I do think that grit and tenacity and resilience, no matter what the different part of your differently wired profile, neurodivergent profile might look like, I think a lot of it comes with, because the world was really much more designed for neurotypicals, um, that we do have that sense of adaptability, because I think we also work harder to fit in and we work harder to make things work, right? I think
Mhm.
there's also, a higher sense of burnout for neurodivergent people who are masking, right? And one of the things I've
Mm.
been talking about this week, and I think it really also aligns with a lot of the stuff that you say, because, there's a lot of like, we have a lot of peanut butter to our chocolate, or as the Brits say, peanut butter to jam. I have we had someone from Great Britain who is joining along quite a bit of the lives this week as well. But I think a lot of it is that, kind of that space of you say that higher true self, right? And I think that that's the alignment and the integrity with who we are. And Robbie agrees. Roar,
Oh,
roar,
you can hear him. Yeah, there's no muting.
roar.
Okay, Doglet, over here. Come on, buddy.
He
Yeah.
says, ruh, 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 I have to be totally aligned. Yes. And I think that's a big part of manifesting. I think that's a big part of what you
Mhm.
teach as well, is having,
Yeah.
the intentions, the outsides and the insides kind of representing and matching in alignment in a way that helps cause people to manifest what they want.
Yeah, I like that outside and inside matching. But I want to circle back because we were talking about, adaptability and everything. And I realized as soon as I said it, I've got that resilience, that grit, but I also thrive in structure.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the structure of if I know how to do something, like I don't know how to do this very well because I had scheduled it and I couldn't figure out how to get that one to play, but it's like go live anyway. We'll just do it in this way. But I think once I've got a structure and I know how things work, I can relax and I can allow the quirkiness and the playfulness to come out. But that structure really does help me, especially on the spectrum. But I want to talk a little bit more about masking how neurodivergent people can get the burnout can be easier or more likely for. Can you talk a little more about
Yeah, yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, well, and I think one of the things that you're talking about, in terms of having that structure, right?
Mhm.
Some people, maybe those of us that are a little more on the ADHD side, might resist the structure
Mhm.
or the routines. But if they're just like, I like to call them like the guardrails, like on a
Yeah.
bowling thing, or the scaffolding that gives you enough flexibility. But once you have, like, I think once you have, you know that it's there. It's like those, it's almost like those little safety things when you go ice skating. I don't know if you guys have seen them. Some people have seals, some people have like PVC pipe, has an extra set of wheels, and it's just a little structure to give you more freedom. But that structure and support helps you go a little faster. My kids still use them because my youngest is still learning to skate. Um, and I think um and I think depending on the way your brain works, some people really do have that adaptability, and some people, right, don't have that flexibility as much, depending on your neural profile. Especially when it comes to like, I can't transition really well and hop on from one thing to the next. So I think, the thing I want to leave people with is the importance of just knowing how you operate, so you're in that space of true you, right? Understanding the alignment and the integrity of your unique system. And then when it comes to the unmasking, I think, people don't talk about it as much, but the energy it requires to fit in, the energy that it takes to, like, if you're an impulsive person like me, to sit there and go, I'm not supposed to say anything. I don't want to interrupt Ariana. I just gotta hold it in. I'm gonna just look at them, or I'm gonna look them in the eyes, and I don't like to look them in the eyes, or what, whatever it is, right? The extra effort to do those things, to be that way, to show up in a world Well, it takes a lot of energy. And I think that that energy, and then on top of that, the energy of, well, I have to work harder to fit into this world. And so if I have to meet an expectation that somebody has put on me, I think that's where that burnout comes. And I also think kind of the like literal transition for those people that have very literal thinking when somebody says, oh, you have to give 100%. Well, they
Mhm.
give everything in their tank, right? We often, a lot of neurodivergent people are much more efficient and get everything done much quicker. And then they go, either somebody gives you more work and you're like, okay, or you're like, well, that was so fast. Clearly I'm not enough. I didn't do enough and I have to do more. So we keep doing more and we keep doing more and we keep going, okay. And so between the not fitting in and already having some simple things in life already being and existing in a much more difficult
Mhm.
way, I think we then try to overcompensate even at the things that we're great at, that we can get done in an hour or a half hour where it takes somebody else a week. And so that we do the hard stuff so that we're good and right. And again, it's just seeping energy and seeping energy and seeping energy and trying to fit in. And I think that's where those higher burnout. Apparently I disappeared into burnout, blackout. I don't know if it showed up for you like that, but Miles
It
was getting
did. You kind of flashed out and came back.
burnout
So
is bad. Don't do it. Right. Um,
I really like what you said about the masking. Because I remember when I first started to develop the true self work, that alignment work, where I saw that that would be helping people be more efficient and effective with manifesting without white knuckling it and pressuring themselves. Alignment was key. I remember I saw this image or felt it. I was wearing this big, hairy coat, and the hairy coat was like uncomfortable on the inside. It was like I put this on and then I needed that to deal with others. I didn't have a way of being in the world as someone who was super sensitive. I didn't know how to relate. I didn't know how to do small talk. I didn't know how to do any of that. So, as a business owner, I remember forcing myself to do networking, forcing myself out with people. And it was so painful, so uncomfortable that it would take me days to recover. And I it was not as simple as extrovert introvert. It was way more because I'm also introverted. It was that masking that I would look like, how should I be? And then I
Mhm.
like
Right, and you're
observe
spending
that.
mental energy
Yeah,
and you're spending emotional energy. And if you're a sensitive person, right, all of the extra, so my kid is a highly sensitive, and just the like out in the world. And there was an interesting video that I watched and I brought it to them and I was like, "Hey kiddo, does this feel like you?" And it was talking about like demand avoidance, but from this like what it's like to be perceived inside
mhm,
that mask, right? And on
mhm,
top of it, my kid's trans. So then there's also being perceived in a different body than the one that they, is aligned for who they are. And so, right. So, and I think that's a little bit about what you're talking about. You put on the coat to kind of fit in, but
yeah,
it's so prickly. The perception of this is the mask that I'm wearing and it's uncomfortable. I just want to scratch it off my face. And to kind of like, it's almost like minor torture. And so when you talk
yeah,
about the fact that it takes like 3 to 5 days to recover, sure it does. Because your nervous system is fighting so hard, because your emotional system is fighting so hard, because
yeah.
your sensory system is on overload, right? I am not surprised if you don't need to like hide in a dark room and take a like a 3 day nap.
I know. And actually, darkness, it's another interesting point. So I'm going to circle back because this conversation's awesome. It's going everywhere, like
Yes,
it
because
always
that's
does.
what
Yeah,
we do is
I know we
neurodivergent.
do.
We talk
Um,
over each other, we talk in circles, we don't go linear, we don't answer one question in front of us.
So alignment, and I want to circle back into manifesting and this inside outside that you mentioned. So in because I know you've done a lot of manifesting, we've worked together, you've coached me, I've coached you. Talk to me about how you see you and your quirkiness and how manifesting kind of dovetails in with that and how it supports you.
Okay, so I think I think there's a couple of things. And I would say I'm going to try 3. It might be 4. Right? So I think one thing that I help people with, right, is when you start to peel off the mask,
Yeah,
you may or may not remember who that true version of you is. Like the one that
absolutely
was the
true.
kid, the one that got injured, the one that all that stuff, right? And so like you were saying on that like furry coat, right? There's a process to kind of to pull off all those
And
coats,
then
to
you
pull
feel
off
vulnerable. I remember it was
and you,
my soft shell crab
right.
face when I took off the coat. Yep.
And vulnerability is a good thing, but we create these masks out of a sense of safety
Yes.
because we don't inherently belong, because we don't have that sense of I'm with you. And so now when we take that, there's 2 things that happen kind of concurrently as it relates to manifesting. One is the kind of discovery, the unleashing, the getting to know our relationship with the parts of us that we shoved into tiny little boxes or that we
Yep.
hid, and starting to really re-meet ourselves in the beautiful and gloriousness that are our natural ways of being, right? You call it higher true self, I call it our 7 essences to shine, because I love a good rainbow. And so I believe that we have these kind of natural ways of being. I believe there's kind of at least 7, right? And it kind of maybe lines up with chakras. And I have no knowledge of chakras. It's one of those like intuitive hits and knowings that is my superpower, right? And so as you start to find out like who you are in your best, most unmasked self, we start to build the confidence in that self so you can express that. Now, as it relates to manifesting, I look at manifesting and there's the anything that you can manifest. But as somebody who has lots of shields up and protections and thick coats and lots of jackets, I have a nice cozy blanket. Right. If I'm behind this blanket all the time and you guys don't get to see me, right? The true me isn't out energetically in the world. And money, she is our friend, right? If we're talking about manifesting money, for example, which when people talk about manifesting, a lot of time that's the one they
It is. A lot of
associate with,
times it
right?
is money. Yep. Yep.
Right? It's a relationship. And now, technically, manifesting is resources, whether it's receiving help from people, right? Having a team, having people help you out. To manifest and receiving is a vulnerable act. So if we have our masks on, I'm not sure I've ever said this. This is going to be freaking great conversation, right? If we have a mask on, we have closed off our ability to receive, because the masks and the protection, because we aren't choosing. And vulnerability is a strong thing. A strong person can choose to be vulnerable. And so it's the power to, this is me. I'm willing to see the true me. I'm willing to let that out and create relationships with people as the unmasked version of myself. And one of those people, energies, or entities is money. And so I look at her as one of our best friends. It's why I have. So for those of you that don't know the behind the scenes, I was going to do a presentation this morning and I texted Ariana yesterday. I was like, I need a picture of us. I know we met here and I know we took a really good photo. Where's the photo of us in person? And so I like to think about manifesting
Excuse
money.
me.
Woo-hoo, bless you. Um, in that relationship, like a biz bestie. Right. And I have, I think on the picture I have five of my biz besties that I got to see in person, and they're all uniquely different. But I think when it comes to manifesting, right, that manifesting energy, it's the same person. I need to show up in my relationship with money the same way I show up with Ariana.
Yeah, yeah. I really appreciate how you were saying that mask. And I was thinking, mask, masculine, feminine, receiving. And I
Mm.
think men have, just this is me speaking, just generally, they have a little bit easier time being out in the world and driven, where females can be a little bit more sensitive. Let's just say that, generally speaking. And I think of manifesting it, the masculine intends, the conscious part of our mind says, this is where I want to go, this is what I want. manifesting for me is it's a form of easier goal setting, goal achieving. That's all. And it's doing it with grace and support. And then the feminine says, okay, I've got the picture out there, what I want, and I'm really clear. I've cleared the resistance, the blocks to receiving, and now I am open to doing the right action and the right beingness to bring that to me. So my form of manifesting is not just sit on the sofa and go, oh,
Oh, no, it's not.
it's very active. It's getting that alignment, getting clear, this is what I want, the timing's right. You don't plant a garden in the middle of January if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. So
Right.
the timing for certain things, and then being receptive to the breadcrumbs along the way, do this and then take that and then call Meredith
Well,
and
and I think,
yeah.
when you talk about removing the blocks, right? Those masks are some of the blocks,
Oh, they're one of the biggest. That's a good
right?
point. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it might be that you manifest in one. I know for me personally, I manifest in one area of my life significantly more, right? I am a money magnet, right? I actually manifested last year more money just for no reason, like just in the realm of receiving than I earned
I
personally.
remember that. It was
Right. They
amazing.
were neck and neck, right? Neck and neck. And between the two, right, it's a couple $100,000, right? And so, but just to think that that's an energetic thing, and it's could be because the other places and the other areas where I received, I'm more unmasked than I am out in the public. Right now, I would say that I'm really unmasked with my private clients, which is why they stay year after year after year after, right? I have
Mm,
high retention. I have high retention. The like, and I think there's something to be said about that. We were talking about like that scaffolding, but I do also think that there is safe places to be 100% unmasked. And so when you think about
agreed.
cultivating and the doing, right, there's the who I'm going to be and what I'm going to do, which is what you said. And I think certain environments are more conducive for it, right? So when you're in a community where you have the ability to be unmasked and you share the actions and you share what you're doing in those places, it's easy to have that momentum show up that way, and the safe place and the containers that people are holding you accountable in and all that stuff. But I do think it is why, again, I talk to my biz besties almost every day of the week, right? And I would say that could be a huge part of why I manifested so much money last year, is because that energy and the structure of having a regular conversation with somebody who loves me and knows me to the depths of my core, who's seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, and watched me bawl my eyes out and deal with my struggles and knows my weaknesses and all of those things. I think that regular structure that I have for myself has given me the ability to manifest so much.
Because that vulnerability, you've created relationships where you can be raw, where I call like expose my belly, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah. So I wanted to also let's circle back to the summit. Why should people opt in? And then we'll kind of wrap it up. Why? What's the benefit to them? Because I know there's a lot of things, a lot of demand for people's attention right now. What uniquely are they going to get in your summit?
Well, I think so. This summit is really designed for the neurodivergent, whether you're on the autism spectrum, whether you're ADHD, or you have that beautiful combo of ADHD. We do have a handful of ADHD experts out there as well. And or learning disabilities. I'm dyslexic, dysgraphic, etc. And we talk about a lot of this, and there are a lot of amazing experts. Now, today there's just 3, and we're doing a live energy scan and channeling later today. So that could be reason enough to join, because you'll get to watch Ariana's interview as it's out today. But we are also having a binge weekend this weekend. So all of them
Hmm.
would be available. But I think, one of the things to find out is, depending on the topics and the titles, like you could still get a huge value out of joining if you just did 1 or 2 a day just over the
Yep.
weekend, right? Especially if you were not somebody, so it's Passover. is coming to an end, and I know a lot of the world is ramping into Easter this weekend. If you don't celebrate Easter, and I think Ramadan's around the corner, right? I don't actually have all of my holidays settled. I know it's, but it could be a good time to just chill and do something for yourself.
I like
Right.
that. Just one talk. I mean, you've got people like Tosh Corbin, one of my favorite, differently wired marketing, Zach Spuckler, who he's your Facebook guy, and Leonie Dawson, unmasking
Right.
potential. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, especially since you and I have been talking about unmasking both
Yep.
Leonie's, which again, the binge weekend will start soon. She, and there was also a Dana Abraham, and
Mhm.
she talked about burnout, and we had that conversation. Those two were
Perfect.
really, really powerful, and the way, and Leonie is she's the ADHD, she's on the spectrum and has and I think Dana is an ADHDer. And so you can hear the stories of practical people. And Dana, Dana was really open to have the conversation. When you talk about manifesting and having a mask up, well, she'd been going through this process of this burnout and all of this stuff. She kind of disappeared from social media. And it's funny because I had her on my list to reach out to, for months. And energetically, I just wasn't doing it. And then she made these very vulnerable posts about what was going on in her life. And I was like, hey, are you ready to talk about it? Are you willing to talk about it?
I gotta listen to that one. Thank you for
And
that.
she's on the leaderboard, right? Like in terms of like, she's
Oh,
a huge audience. And
vulnerability for marketing on socials. Yeah, it really
I mean,
creates connections with people.
it
Yeah.
does, and we didn't even talk about that. We really just talked about what was going on and what she posted, and hers
Yeah.
is about the
Yeah.
burnout that she experienced. But it was written in such a way, and so you come back to that manifesting, right? The willingness to show up on socials, the willingness to bring that vulnerability, like you were,
Vulnerability. Yep. Yep.
right? It attracted me, and I had the conversation with her. I was willing to step into that conversation, and she's brought a lot of people to the summit. And so it really is those kind of energetic alignments,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? The willingness to be vulnerable, the willingness to ask for what you need, right? And again, when we talk about manifesting, it is money, but it's also resources. It's also people who are
People.
willing.
Yep.
People are such a huge, and that's why the unmasking can be such a big process for manifesting.
Yep. Yep. Beautiful. All right. So I will put the link to join in on the summit. And again, my interview goes live today, Manifesting for
Yay.
Those on the Spectrum.
It's up
And
now.
it's right now, and do join in, because there might be, as Meredith said, one gem and that you can take away and use your intuition. You just scan through the speakers. What do you need now? And watch those. All
Right.
right.
And I'm going to make an extra little sales pitch. This summit has an amazing bundle of courses and
Oh,
things
yeah.
from all of these people, including from Ariana. And so the price of the bundle, if you haven't already opted in and signed up, right when you sign up, there's a nice little deal. And it's over $1,000 worth of free courses and coupon codes and things like that to the reduced prices on courses. Plus, you get moolah to spend with me if you want as well. But Ariana's Breaking Through Barriers. Did I get there? I'm doing this
Yes.
from
Yeah.
memory, right? I'm doing it
Yeah.
out of my brain,
You
right?
get the whole course for
It's
free.
a whole course. No, I think it's a discount.
Oh,
You gave
okay.
us a special code. It saves you $100 on it, which is the cost of the upgrade. So it's well worth it. You get a bunch of stuff for the price of one. A bunch of stuff for the price of one.
Yeah.
So I made it a super sweet deal. And so that also gives you access. If you want, you don't have the time, you can go one interview a month or whatever you want, because you get
All
lifetime
right.
access
Get
to all the
access.
interviews.
Brilliant.
And so all you have to do is just opt in for free. If you want to just enjoy the binge weekend, everything will be available through Monday evening. So you can just pick whichever handful that you want. Start with Ariana.
Oh,
And
this was fun, Mare. Thanks for being so available. All
yes,
right.
thank you for
So
doing
much
it.
love to you. Thanks for your conversation and all you do in the world. Bye bye.
I love you.
Love
Bye.
you. Bye bye.